Hey there everyone, Mr. Educational Video here to show a couple of things for PC users. One thing I want to go over is my video settings. I actually haven't shown this in a video yet, but here they are. I am far from understanding this fully myself, but I happen to run an AMD CPU and a GTX 3070, NVIDIA 3070 as a graphics card. So hopefully that will guide you a little bit. From what I understand, the AMD CPU is how I'm using this FSR 3.1 frame generation, and then super resolution and NVIDIA reflex low latency. I think that this is because of the NVIDIA graphics card, as far as I understand. If you know more about this stuff and perhaps can provide some comments that can help out people who have other setups, like having Intel CPUs and stuff like that, if you can leave some of that guidance down in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. But people have asked me what my setups here is, and here it is for you to copy. As far as other settings, I have like all this other stuff turned off. I could probably turn it on, but I've gotten so used to the game being pretty like low other sorts of graphics. I just don't like a whole lot of clutter. You know, I could make the game really beautiful, but I'd rather it run absolutely perfectly, and that's the whole idea. Anyway, the other thing I'm going to be focusing on today is showing off how to create a HUD, and my HUD is some object that people ask me about quite frequently. How is your HUD invisible? Why is there no icon in there? How do you have all the numbers in there? And so this video is going to get into that. Now what I'll say is, I'm not going to be able to walk you through every single step by step. There's going to be a lot of like experimenting to get things in exactly the right place and exactly the right size. I'll leave you to play with that. You know, perhaps along the way you'll come up with a setup that you like a little bit better than what I've got here. But I'll give you the right instructions and step by step in order to get you close to having this setup. And just to give you an idea of what we're looking to achieve, this is the hexagon is my ability. You can see when I use my ability, the ability cooldown timer is in the center there in seconds. I've also got my dodge count below that. Above it, I've got the indicator to show that I have a med kit, that I have a syringe, that I have 12, 11, 10 knives, etc. In fact, the grenades are even color-coded because when I'm playing on veteran, I want to have lower grenades. The lower grenades, the better, so you don't overcap yourself accidentally. So it's color-coded to show me when I'm getting too high on grenades and need to throw one. Then I've got the ammo at the bottom, as well as my blessings that appear at the very bottom underneath my stamina bar. And my stamina bar doesn't have the text that says stamina bar on it anymore. That's been fully removed. Oh, I also have the reload timer that appears above the hexagon there. So I think that's pretty much, oh, and the left little parentheses over there, that is my health, and on the right it's my toughness. And you'll see here that when my toughness is broken, if my toughness is not 100%, the toughness bar is red. And that just tells me, okay, when it turns back to blue, I have protection against one melee hit where I won't take damage, but if it's red, I need to be avoiding taking melee hits at all costs because it'll bleed through into my health. Having 100% toughness is really important in that way. So there you go. That's everything that the hexagon sort of mini UI centralized setup can do for you. Let's get into talking about how to make it. And in order to do this craft, you will need 5 different mods. I know that sounds like a lot, but these mods are very powerful and versatile, and I promise you won't regret having any of them. The first one we will need is numeric UI. There it is. Numeric UI. Numeric UI only does one thing for us here, and that is adding the dodge count that is appearing there. And for some reason, this thing will toggle itself off. I've yet to figure out why that is. If anyone knows why this is toggling itself off and I have to press the better buff management hotkey to get it turned back on, please let me know in the comments. Okay, going on from there. We need numeric UI. We also need crosshair HUD. Crosshair HUD is just going to give us the other features like the ammo counters and a little parentheses for our health and our toughness and our grenade counters and stuff. Then we will need better buff management. This is how we're going to trim down our buffs list, because normally when you have the buffs, there's like this huge huge row of like 11, 15 buffs all across the bottom of the screen, and it's so hard to pick out which ones you actually want to be looking at and which ones are important, and this is going to get rid of a lot of that. Then we will need HUD Tweaker. HUD Tweaker is a super powerful mod that I don't even know the full potential of yet, but you can change literally any element of the HUD, and this is going to allow us to mess with a couple things and get them just how we need to make this whole setup work. And then Custom HUD is the sort of the linchpin that holds it all together. Custom HUD is how you get everything repositioned on the screen. Although you can do everything with Custom HUD with HUD Tweaker as well. Custom HUD just makes it really simple to like grab and drag and drop, but you can use HUD Tweaker to do everything that Custom HUD can. It just is a little bit more finicky is what I'll say. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that you will notice once you've installed your Crosshair HUD is you'll have two of these parentheses on your screen somewhere. Now we need to go through and tweak all these settings to get these things roughly the right size, and also we need to turn off a lot of extra stuff. Like you'll have a little diamond-shaped waffle thing on your screen that represents your ability. We want to get rid of all that stuff. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into our mod settings, and we are going to find Crosshair HUD. Okay, and once we're here, we're going to scroll down to health settings, and this is what we'll want to have. We'll want to have display gauge on, which it should already be on, scale independently on, scale 1.6, move independently on. This is going to make it a separate entity from the health numbers and stuff like that, and then we will move that little parenthesis to wherever we need it to be. Then what we need to do is turn off display permanent health text and hide health text in general, because we don't care what our actual health number is. We just want the bar. We want to see how much health we have roughly. And then just copy the rest of the stuff you have in here. You can set your health to have different colors when you're at full health versus I've taken a little bit of damage, I've taken a lot of damage, or I'm about to die. If you really want, I like to just leave it the regular plain color. Then we'll do the same thing with toughness. Toughness needs to have display gauge on, scale independently on, move independently on, scale 1.6. The always show toughness should be on, hide toughness, hide at full toughness should be off. And then for my threshold colors, you can do this however you want. But the way I have it set up is you'll need to have at least 3 different colors here. You'll need to have a color for when you have been overcapped by gold toughness. My color is lime, so my gold toughness is actually lime toughness. So if you have a veteran shout or a zealot book on your team, you'll see that you have a lime green health or toughness, and that'll tell you that you're protected against damage. Then your full threshold color, I've just got this off so it looks like that blue toughness bar. That's the regular default color, but you could turn that any color you want by turning this on and selecting a color. And then for every other color, I've selected red so that it jumps out that, hey, your toughness is not full right now. Be careful with melee enemies because they could hurt you through your toughness. Just to get my attention a little bit more. But you can make this any color you want for having almost full, medium to low, and very, very low toughness. Then we're going to come down here and turn coherency off. Ability to settings, this needs to go to off because that's going to get rid of that little diamond waffle. Ammo settings, it's going to be on, but we want to turn the show icon off. And scrolling on down, pocketable. This is our health kits and our ammo kits. We want display indicator on. Stim settings, display indicator on. Peril overheat, I have this off. I use the game's default settings for this. And then grenade settings on with the grenade icon off, because we'll know that number represents our grenades. We don't need that little grenade icon to take up more space. And I actually have set the colors up like I was saying here. When my grenades are full, I need to be throwing them because I'm playing Veteran, and Veteran doesn't want to have capped grenades ever because you're wasting a chance to regenerate them. So I get a red grenade color for having full grenades, so I know to chuck one, and then I should chuck another one when it's yellow, and then I'm good when it's green or blue. And then reload settings on only during reload, so that little bar appears to show your reload. And then ally settings off, psyker indicators off, and that should be everything for Crosshair HUD. Now, your screen is going to be an absolute mess, right? You've got a bunch of modded nonsense all over it that you just plugged in, and this is where it's going to come into play. You need to get into the F3 menu. Oh, by the way, the other thing you'll want to do before you do any of this stuff is go in here and figuring out some key bindings for these things. I'm pretty certain that that custom HUD comes with this as the key binding F3, but you can bind it to whatever you need it to be. And you'll also need to bind hotkeys for both HUD tweaker, which I bound mine to plus on my numpad, and better buff management wherever that lives. I saw this. I think there it is. I put that on the period, the decimal on the numpad. So once you got all that set up, you'll press F3 or whatever it is that brings up your custom HUD, and it's time to start getting stuff repositioned and figured out. Now, one really important thing you can do is you can select these by left-clicking them and then move them around with the arrow keys. Stephanie, it's okay. We don't need to hear from you right now. So we can move things around with the arrow keys, but you'll have elements that you don't want to see anymore, that you want them to completely disappear because they are just completely extraneous to what we're going to be doing. And one of those is the buff bar. Down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll have a bar that says like, have buffs, something like this, but it'll have a different name. And you'll just want to make that turn invisible. And how you do that is you just right click it, and it'll turn to this dark gray color like this. So you won't have to worry about it. If you, and you also need to go down here in this bottom right corner for the player weapon handler thing that you saw, this one right here. You'll see if I turn this on, I have the player weapon stuff at that bottom right corner. That's all going to be taken care of by our little center screen HUD. So I'm going to toggle that back off by going back in, oops, and toggling it off. And I accidentally toggled my whole UI off in doing that. But there you go. So yeah, go ahead and cut those off, and then it's time to start getting the elements that we just made positioned towards the center of the screen. Go ahead and take your ability icon, which should be living somewhere down here in this bottom right corner, and move it towards the center, your little hexagon, and then move your parentheses into roughly the right spaces. We can make minor tweaks to these later using HUD Tweaker by changing them like pixel by pixel value to get it like absolutely perfect, but just get them in the rough spaces right now. Or if you want, you can sit here and like click it and then tap the arrow key as fast as you possibly can, like just as light as you possibly can, to move things very, very small increments. But I won't be going over the exact setups that I have, but just, I mean, you can go scroll back to the beginning of the video or check out right now. This is where I have everything positioned. So you can see all of my buffs are down here. And there you go. Okay, so we got that all set. Now, the problem for you is you don't have a transparent hexagon to put all this stuff in. You have your ability hexagon. How do we make this thing transparent? How do we, so that we can put like information inside of it and not have it covered up by the shroud field icon? Well, the way we're going to do that is through HUD Tweaker. So open up HUD Tweaker using whatever hotkey you bound to it, and be very careful with this window. Windows like HUD Tweaker and Better Buff Management, they are very, very finicky, and they will freak the fuck out on you if you like grab and drag them in any crazy ways or click on stuff you're not supposed to. So I would be very deliberate about my clicks, because it'll like make your game freak out, and you'll have to like close the game and open it again to get it to stop doing it. Now, what we're going to be looking here for today is we want to look for the player ability thing, which is right here, element player ability. We'll do the drop down, and we'll click on cooldown timer, and then we'll drop down on text, and we will come down here to visible, and we'll make certain that this is on. I think that's the source of, thank you, 70. I'm pretty certain that's the source of having the cooldown timer on there. I cannot remember though. If it is from something else, you can please let me know in the comments. All right, then the next thing we'll need to do is we will need to scale this text appropriately to be in the center of our hexagon. My font size here is 38. Okay, you could also change the color of the text. You can change literally everything about it with this. You could change the color by changing the RGB values, but let's leave that for now and go on to focusing on the ability icon itself. Because remember that right now we should have the shroud field icon in here, and that is this icon drop down, and then you'll drop down visible, and you can see if I check visible, the shroud field pops up here. So that's the one I've toggled off to make it so that this is just an empty hexagon. Then you can do what I've done here, and you can change the color of the frame glow, this little glowing effect. I've changed it to be cyan instead of white by changing the color with the RGB values. So you can do that and change it to any color you want, although this is a little bit finicky and sometimes it'll still show up white for some reason. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that and then close it all up, and we should be good with HUD Tweaker for right now. But HUD Tweaker, as I said before, is an incredibly powerful mod. You can use it to do a lot of stuff, changing the color, changing the size of pretty much any font anywhere in the game, or removing fonts. One of the things I did here with HUD Tweaker, actually there's a couple more things we want to do. One of the things I did with HUD Tweaker here is I removed the ability hotkey that appears above our ability, because you'll have it and it'll say like whatever your hotkey is right here. If it's F, it'll just say F right there above it, and we don't want to be putting F's in chat. So we will, I think it's this. Visible? No, that's not it. Input text. There it is. Yeah, input text. This is the one, and then you'll go to visible, and then you'll toggle it off. There you go. So you can see the little, there it is, the little 2 that's appearing below it there, right here. That toggles it off, so there won't be an extra little number there, and you can put your ammo here without overlapping it. Okay, now we've got all that done. The last thing that I did with a HUD Tweaker that you might want to assess is the stamina bar, wherever that's at. I'm certain that I'm glossing over it here somewhere. Blocking? Maybe? No. Who knows? Experiment with this on your own time. Figure out on your own time where this stuff is. There is so much you can do with this tool here. Remove whatever text you want to remove and get it to look just so. I'm not gonna spend any more time working with that, but yeah, learn this tool because it's a very powerful tool. Okay, so yeah, ultimately the goal is to have your, I forget what's underneath in there because it's such an arcane little thing to learn, but figure out where it is. And what I did is I just removed the word stamina from the stamina bar, and there you go. It looks like this. The last thing we need to do, the last step, is we need to curate our buffs so that we are not overwhelmed by 50 million different buffs. And we've already accomplished the first step of this, which is by removing the other buff bars. You should be able to attack and like get buffs and use your abilities and stuff, and there should be no buffs showing up at the bottom of your screen. If you do have buffs showing up down there, you need to go into F3 again, and you need to right click them and gray them out like this so that they're invisible, because we're going to start over fresh with a new bar that has no buffs populated in it, and we're going to do that with better buff management. So go ahead and open better buff management, and the first thing you'll need to do is create a new buff bar. You'll just go up here and you'll type like new buff bar, type it in all caps, type it whatever you need so that it stands out for you. Once you've created that buff bar, then you'll go back, you'll close this out again, you'll go into F3 and you'll locate that buff bar, and I want you, it probably spawns somewhere down here. I want you to drag it and get it to up here where this buff 2 bar is for me, this big long one right here. So that's roughly the place you'll want it, because that is going to align just so, as you can see here, my buffs align just right with my stamina bar there. So the way we go about that is we need to figure out where that buff bar is by populating the bar with some buffs. And in order to do that, we're going to go to our bar, which is now appeared right here, and we are going to drop it down, and we're going to see that there's nothing, there will be nothing in there for you. It'll look like, well, it won't look like this one. It'll look like this. The new bar will have nothing in it. How do we add buffs to it? Well, we go down here and we need to select buffs, and then just like click all these, click these buffs that we want, and then we would do the drop down and we see add these to the new, and we would say add selected, and you can see they just popped up right there. Now we are only going to add certain buffs to this bar, and this is how we're going to keep it from being overwhelmingly full with lots and lots of nonsense. There are 2 groups. The first group is really easy to manage, and that's weapon buffs. The way we do that is we are going to do this. We're going to search weapon, and ignore the fact that my hotkeys are taking me to Halloween right now. we're going to search weapon, and you'll see here that these first 6 here are veteran. They happen to have a weapon in their name for the veteran, but we're not going to click those. We can click select all here and unclick these 6. But all the rest of these, except for these last couple here, which are zealot buffs, we'll unclick those. All of these are all of the weapon buffs in the game. And the best part about adding weapon buffs to our bar is you will never be overwhelming yourself with weapon buffs by putting them all on your bar, because at any given time, you can only have 2 on there. You're only going to have 1 from each of your blessings that'll appear on your bar. And so, yeah, at most you'll have 2. You can't have much more than that, because they only last for a couple seconds, and at max you're carrying 2 weapons in your build anyway. So don't worry about adding too many. Just go ahead and add all of these to your selected bar and you'll be good to go. Now the second set, and then once you do that, go ahead and go back and then close out better buff management and check out and make certain that your buffs are populating. So if you have a sword with thrust, that's a really nice one to do it on, thrust and uncanny like I have here, you can see that both thrust and uncanny strike are appearing in my bottom bar because I have those correctly slotted into my buff bar here. And then we'll need to add our class buffs. These class buffs, I have everything from other classes trimmed out because I don't really need to know when their buffs are on me. It's either they are or they aren't. I have no control over that. What I do have control over is what currently buffs I have. So specifically buffs like my shroud field, like I need to know, is it about to run out? Oh yeah, I have like 1 second left. Get the kill. I have 5 stacks of Blazing Piety, 6 stacks of Blazing Piety, 7 stacks. Like I need to be counting those things because that's important to how I operate in the game. So in order to add those buffs, you'll go back into better buff management and you need to search for your class. So I'm a zealot, so I'll search zealot, and this is all the buffs right here that apply to zealot, because you see they have the word zealot in them. And do not just select all of these, because the problem with doing that is that some of these things here are very, like, they're buffs, yeah, like Fortitude and Fellowship, that's a buff. Second Wind is a buff, Enduring Faith is a buff, but these are things that are going to occur passively, and they'll either occur when you dodge an attack or they won't. They're not anything you'll have to manage and play around. Like, let me put it to you this way. If you have good balance as a buff and you select it and put it in your bar here, when it's activated, you have 25% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. Does that make you go, oh look, I see that I have that buff for damage reduction on my bar. It's time for me to take a hit. No, you don't. You never want to take hits. So let's not clutter our bar with things that are nice buffs to have, but we don't need to know that we have them. We do still have them, but we don't need to have the information that, like, oh, it's time for me to take damage. What we do need to have information about is, all right, my damaging stacks are at full, and therefore this is the time where I want to launch my secret, like, special move. And so therefore, things like Duelist are really important to show you once you dodge an enemy, if Duelist has triggered, it's time to use our charge ability and get that extra, like, super powerful attack. You want to populate it with things like Shroud Field, so we can see the duration of our Shroud Field. You want to populate it with things like Fury of the Faithful, because Fury of the Faithful has the 20% attack speed for 10 seconds, and we want to make certain that's still on us. So you can see here, combat ability, attack speed increase, that's that one. So we'll know we got that going. And there's Duelist right there. So you'll want to add the ones that are appropriate to your class that you need to know whether or not you have it up. And so for me on Zealot, I need to know whether or not I have Blazing Piety at full stacks, because if I don't, I'm missing 25% crit chance. I need to know how much time is left on my Shroud Field, because if I come out of Shroud Field in front of someone, I'm going to die. I need to know if Duelist is up, because that's when I can capitalize and retaliate with heavy damage. But everything else, let's leave it on the cutting room floor. And there you go. So once you've got that put in there, you should be able to see your bar full of buffs. What I would recommend doing is putting some sort of buff that appears all the time in the bar. So I think about, like, I'm trying to think of a buff, but there are certain buffs that will just be in there. Like you could put Loner on the bar, and Loner as a buff, it's an aura, so it's always present. So it'll just be showing up right there, you know, right below the stamina bar where this stuff would be. And that way you can hold down block and you can see exactly where it is, and you can go into F3 and you can position it pixel by pixel and get it to line up just right. But then the rest of this experience is just fiddling with things and getting them to line up just so that everything is nice and neat and tidy. Okay, I think that's everything. Most of this is just going to be a experience. Just experiment with it, learn the mods, and please someone tell me like if I'm missing any secrets with HUD Tweaker, or I'm missing any secrets with some of these mods, especially whatever's causing it to, like, you know, disappear like that on me for no reason. All right, appreciate you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.